December 14th, 2010. It was shortly before 3:47 in the morning when a black Suzuki motorcycle approached the Bellagio in Las Vegas. The rider wore a black leather jacket, gloves, and a helmet with a tinted visor that completely concealed his face. He parked near the entrance, with the engine ready for a quick escape. He stepped off the bike and walked through the casino doors like an ordinary late-night guest. Inside, the Bellagio was quiet. A few gamblers were still playing, dealers remained at their tables, and security guards followed their usual routes. Surveillance cameras recorded the rider from multiple angles, but nothing about him immediately appeared unusual. He moved past the blackjack and roulette tables and entered the high-limit area. Ahead of him was the craps pit, where stacks of high-denomination casino chips were sitting in plain sight. The rider reached into his jacket and pulled out a pistol. The dealer froze. He immediately began sweeping chips into a bag, ignoring the lower denominations and taking the most valuable ones. Among them were the rare cranberry-colored chips, each worth $25,000. The entire robbery was over before casino security could respond. The rider returned along the same route, exited the building, climbed onto the motorcycle, and disappeared onto Las Vegas Boulevard. By the time security fully understood what had happened, approximately $1.5 million in casino chips was gone. The cameras had captured the robbery, but the helmet concealed the rider's face. He left no clear fingerprints, visible license plate, or immediate clue that could identify him. At first, the crime appeared to be the work of an experienced professional, someone who had studied the casino, chosen a precise target, and entered with a carefully planned escape route. But the robber was not an outsider. His name was Anthony Carleo, a 29-year-old former pharmacy student and the son of Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge George Assad. Carleo had grown up surrounded by opportunity. He attended private school, had access to expensive cars and a comfortable home, and appeared to have every advantage. But by his 20s, his life had begun to unravel. By 2008, Carleo was buried in credit card debt and moving from one failed plan to another. He eventually filed for bankruptcy, but his behavior did not change. His family offered him another chance. They agreed to support him if he returned to school to study medicine. He moved to Las Vegas and stayed in his father's spare room, hoping to rebuild his life. For a while, the plan appeared to work. He attended classes, began a relationship, and stayed away from drugs. But Las Vegas offered constant temptation. During breaks between semesters, Carleo returned to gambling and drugs. Within weeks, the approximately $30,000 he had brought with him was gone. His father stopped providing financial support, leaving him broke, addicted, and desperate. Carleo had spent enough time inside the Bellagio to understand its layout. He knew where the high-value chips were kept, how the tables operated, and how security moved through the casino. As his debts and losses increased, an idea he had once treated as a joke began to feel possible. Instead of trying to win money at the Bellagio, he would simply take it. Carleo's plan was built on familiarity rather than complexity. Unlike most casino thieves, he had no interest in the cashier cages, vaults, or back rooms. His target was sitting in plain sight. The high-limit craps tables routinely held stacks of chips worth thousands of dollars each, including the rare $25,000 cranberry chips. Carleo believed the casino security system was designed primarily to detect cheating, not someone grabbing chips and leaving before security could react. He studied the Bellagio again, paying attention to the table locations, the distance to the exits, and the time it would take to reach his target and escape. He repeatedly rode his black Suzuki GSX-R through the Las Vegas Strip at night, rehearsing the approach, memorizing the entrance, and timing the route from the motorcycle to the high-limit room. He chose the early morning hours, when dealers were tired, few gamblers remained, and the high-limit tables were still stocked with expensive chips. Before attempting the Bellagio robbery, Carleo tested his idea. On December 9th, 2010, he entered the Suncoast Casino wearing his motorcycle helmet. At the cashier's cage, he displayed a handgun tucked into his waistband and calmly ordered the cashier to hand over money. The robbery lasted less than a minute. He left with approximately $19,000, rode away on his motorcycle, and escaped without resistance. For Carleo, the Suncoast robbery was not the final objective. It proved that his basic approach worked. 5 days later, he prepared for the robbery he had been planning. During the early morning hours of December 14th, 2010, Carleo zipped up his jacket, loaded his handgun, and rode toward the Bellagio on his black Suzuki GSX-R. At approximately 3:46 to 3:47 a.m., he pulled up near the casino's North Valet entrance. He left the motorcycle positioned for a fast departure, kept his helmet on, adjusted his jacket, and walked through the side entrance without attracting attention. Inside, the casino appeared completely normal. Dealers continued working. A few gamblers remained at the tables. Security followed its routine patrols. Carleo walked calmly toward the high-limit room, counting every step from the entrance to the craps pit. He had already memorized the route during his earlier visits. When he reached the table, players were still gambling, and the dealer was in the middle of the game. Stacks of high-denomination chips were sitting directly in front of him. Without hesitation, Carleo pulled a black semi-automatic pistol from inside his jacket. He ordered everyone to move. The table immediately fell silent. Ignoring the lower value chips, he grabbed only the highest denominations, including chips worth between $1,000 and $25,000. He swept them into a black bag as quickly as possible, focusing entirely on speed. The robbery lasted less than 20 seconds. Still holding the handgun, Carleo backed away from the table, returned along the same route he had entered, exited the Bellagio, jumped onto the waiting motorcycle, and accelerated away before security could stop him. Within moments, approximately $1.5 million in casino chips had disappeared from one of the most heavily protected casinos in Las Vegas. After leaving the Bellagio, Carleo did not travel far. He returned to his father's house in Las Vegas, believing the robbery had gone exactly as planned. For a brief time, there was no immediate manhunt and no indication that investigators knew who had committed the crime. Meanwhile, Bellagio security and law enforcement began reviewing surveillance footage. The robber had kept his helmet on throughout the robbery, never revealed his face, left no usable fingerprints, and provided no obvious clue to his identity. Investigators initially believed they were looking for an experienced professional, but Carleo had overlooked a much bigger problem. The casino chips he had stolen were not ordinary cash. Most of the haul consisted of high-denomination chips, including the rare cranberry chips worth $25,000 each. Unlike lower-value chips that circulated regularly, these were closely monitored and rarely appeared in normal casino play. The chips could only be redeemed through the Bellagio. They were individually identifiable, and once the robbery was reported, the casino flagged the stolen chips, making them extremely difficult to cash without attracting attention. Instead of possessing $1.5 million in spendable money, Carleo was holding casino property that was highly traceable. He quickly realized he could not simply walk into the Bellagio and exchange the chips for cash. At first, he returned to the Bellagio as an ordinary customer. Within days of the robbery, he began gambling again inside the very casino he had robbed. He played blackjack and poker, mixing some of the stolen lower denomination chips with legitimate chips, while cashing out relatively small amounts. By exchanging only a few $1,000s at a time, he avoided immediate suspicion. Casino employees saw him as just another regular gambler, winning and losing money. The strategy worked for a while. Carleo continued returning to the Bellagio, gradually converting some of the lower value chips into cash. But the cranberry chips created a much larger problem. Each one was worth $25,000 and appeared so rarely that attempting to redeem one would immediately draw attention. Knowing this, Carleo looked for another way to sell them. Using the username Oceans25 on the 2+2 poker forum, he began posting questions about high-value Bellagio chips. He asked whether anyone would be interested in buying cranberry chips, and hinted that he possessed more than a few of them. Most forum users ignored the posts. Others responded. Privately, Carleo eventually sent a photograph of one of the $25,000 chips as proof that he had access to them. One potential buyer offered $10,000 for a single cranberry chip. Believing he had finally found a solution, Carleo agreed to meet the buyer in person. He had no idea that the decision would become the turning point in the investigation. The man who agreed to buy Carleo's chips introduced himself as Dominic. He claimed to have connections and expressed interest in purchasing more of the stolen cranberry chips. Over several meetings, Carleo exchanged chips for cash, believing he had found a reliable buyer. But Dominic was not who he claimed to be. He was working undercover as part of the investigation into the Bellagio robbery. At the same time, investigators were making progress through another lead. After the robbery, Carleo had continued discussing the stolen chips online. His post on the 2+2 poker forum attracted attention because they contained details that had never been released publicly. Investigators obtained records connected to the forum account and traced the activity back to Las Vegas. The information eventually led them to Anthony Carleo. His background matched what investigators had begun to suspect. He was a regular Bellagio customer, had significant gambling debts, struggled with drug addiction, and had the knowledge needed to carry out the robbery. Rather than arresting him immediately, investigators continued gathering evidence and focused on recovering the remaining stolen chips. The undercover operation continued. On February 2nd, 2011, Carleo returned to the Bellagio carrying 3 cranberry chips worth $25,000 each. He entered a restroom inside the casino where Dominic was waiting. Carleo handed over the chips. Dominic slid an envelope containing $30,000 in cash across the counter. As Carleo prepared to leave, Dominic exited the restroom first. Seconds later, several officers rushed inside and arrested Carleo before he could escape. The investigation had connected every major piece of evidence. The undercover meetings, the online forum posts, the cash transactions, the stolen chips, the motorcycle, the robbery that had appeared almost impossible to solve was now tied directly to Anthony Carleo. Investigators quickly assembled the evidence against him, including surveillance footage, motorcycle records, online messages, undercover recordings, and the recovery of numerous stolen $25,000 chips from locations connected to him. Carleo was charged with multiple felony offenses and denied bail. As news of the arrest spread, the media identified him as the man behind the Bellagio robbery. The mystery surrounding the helmeted robber was over. The Bellagio bandit had been identified as Anthony Carleo, the 29-year-old son of Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge George Assad. Carleo did not contest the case. He eventually pleaded guilty to the charges, instead of taking the case to trial. The court concluded that he had committed one of the boldest casino robberies in Nevada history by entering the Bellagio with a firearm and stealing approximately $1.5 million in casino chips. During the public fallout, attention also turned to Carleo's father, Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge George Assad, as both a prosecutor and a judge. George Assad publicly stated that people who break the law should be held accountable, including his own son. The case received widespread media coverage. Before investigators identified him, casino employees and the media had referred to the unknown robber as the Bellagio Bandit or the Biker Bandit because of the motorcycle and helmet used during the robbery. The court sentenced Carleo to a prison term that placed him in the Nevada state prison system, where he ultimately served just over 4 years before being released on parole. In later interviews, Carleo said that his gambling addiction, drug addiction, and growing debts had become a routine long before the Bellagio robbery. He said the robbery was not simply about money, but about feeling that he still mattered. The Bellagio also responded to the robbery by strengthening its chip security. The casino equipped its remaining cranberry chips with RFID technology, allowing the chips to be tracked, verified, or deactivated more effectively. Most of the stolen high-value chips were never used again. Many remained in evidence or secure storage and could no longer be redeemed. By the time Carleo was released, the Bellagio robbery had largely faded from the headlines. What do you think about Anthony Carleo's plan? Was the robbery itself brilliant? Or was it doomed the moment he tried to cash the stolen chips? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to see more true crime stories based on real investigations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next documentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.